Hey there, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into a pretty radical thought experiment involving, well, arguably one of the most beloved sitcoms in TV history. We are going to completely strip away the laughter from Friends. We're talking about removing the literal, invisible heartbeat of a legendary show, just to see exactly what happens. So, what if Friends really had absolutely no laughter? I want you to imagine the show totally stripped of that trademark real-time energy. No crowd gasping in shock, no roaring applause bouncing off the studio walls. We aren't just talking about muting a sound effect here. We're peeling back the layers to see what's actually left underneath. Think about it. How much of our experience as viewers is intricately tied to the sound of other people having a genuinely good time, right there in the moment? Okay, to really ground ourselves here, let's picture this incredibly chaotic moment. Pivot, 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 right? We all know Ross Geller screaming his head off as they struggle with that giant couch. Now, picture that exact same scene playing out to absolute pin drop silence in a room. Nobody laughing, just three adults yelling at a piece of furniture in a stairwell. It instantly goes from hilarious to, honestly, almost unhinged, completely changing the entire texture of the scene. You realize pretty quickly that without the audience practically giving them permission to be ridiculous, they just look like crazy people. And that brings us straight to the core of this whole concept, the invisible heartbeat. See, the live studio audience was never just a passive observer sitting in the dark. They were an active, completely unseen participant. As we'll see, this audience fundamentally shaped the performance, the writing, and the entire cultural impact of the sitcom. They were a vital organ. The show literally breathed with them. All right, let's dive right into this with layer one, the performance vacuum. Just think about the sheer difference in acting environments for a second. In front of hundreds of actual people, the cast performances were completely spontaneous, completely fueled by live energy. They fed off real, genuine laughter. But if you take that away and put them in an emotional vacuum, performing into dead silence while waiting for an editing room to slap laughs on later, well, the acting becomes rigid and cautious. Icons like Jennifer Aniston and Matt LeBlanc would have been forced to just kind of guess what was actually funny in the moment. Instead of playfully bouncing off a roomful of energy, they're basically just reciting lines into a void. Consider Matthew Perry's incredible Chandler Bing. His entire comedy blueprint relied so heavily on these brilliant micro-pauses, awkward timing, and rapid-fire sarcasm. His supernatural comedic rhythm depended on feeling the crowd's micro-reactions. He knew exactly when to push a line or when to hold back just a beat longer. In a silent room, without that crowd to play off of, his performance just wouldn't have that same spontaneous spark. He would essentially be flying blind, and honestly, some of his most brilliant improvised inflections might never have existed at all. Moving right along to layer two, the live feedback loop. So the audience wasn't just there for the actors, they were actually a vital tool for the writers too. Imagine being at a live taping. An actor would perform a joke, right? And the writers would be standing by, listening incredibly closely to that immediate audience reaction. If a joke fell flat, boom, it was cut on the spot. If a tiny moment got a huge, unexpected laugh, the script was literally rewritten right there on the soundstage to lean into it. The script wasn't just words on a page. It was a living, breathing document, completely at the mercy of the people sitting up in the bleachers. And this creates a massive difference in how the humor actually evolves over time. Live tapings produce this incredibly organic humor. Sure, it's chaotic, but it gets refined in the moment by real human response. Think of Ross desperately shouting, "We were on a break." Without a live audience to react to that, the show has to rely entirely on scripted precision. It becomes way more theoretical, detached, and so much slower to adjust because the writers are basically just guessing what an audience might find funny months down the line when they're stuck in a dark editing bay. Okay, let's peel back another layer. Layer 3, the emotional tension. You see, the absence of an audience alters way more than just the punchlines. It actually changes the dramatic weight of the entire series. Picture a heavy, highly emotional scene, a brutal breakup, a major fight, a heartfelt confession. When that happens in front of a live crowd, the room just goes completely dead quiet. There is a very specific, heavy tension that drops over everything when hundreds of people are collectively holding their breath, just desperately waiting to see what happens next. And that absolute silence, it literally becomes part of the performance. The actors physically feel that dramatic shift in the room, and they lean into it, creating this incredible electric atmosphere. Now, if you try to recreate those emotional beats in a sterile room, leaving all the pacing to an editor later in post-production, Sure, it might feel technically polished, but it becomes so distant. A post-production pause simply cannot replicate the gravity of a live collective silence. It's really the difference between truly feeling a moment deep down and just watching it happen on a screen. Which brings us to our final and deepest level, Layer 4, the cultural zeitgeist. This is all about how that live audience actively shaped us, the viewers sitting at home. A huge part of why Friends became such an unstoppable juggernaut is because we weren't just passively watching jokes. We were experiencing them alongside hundreds of other people laughing in real time. Subconsciously, that communicates to our brains, hey, this is funny, and everybody else totally agrees. That dynamic makes the laughter highly contagious, and it builds this massive sense of community straight through the TV screen. We literally felt like we were sitting on that orange couch in Central Perk right with them, and largely because we heard other people right there with us. Without that live audience, our emotional connection to the show would have been fundamentally weaker. We lose that contagious communal rhythm, and instead, we're just left with an isolated experience. The show might still have been popular, sure, but it wouldn't just sound different. It would feel a lot less immediate, way less electric, and honestly, much less alive at its core. It basically transforms from this deeply shared cultural event into, well, just another television program you watch by yourself on a Tuesday night. So I really want to leave you with this final thought today. Comedy isn't just about writing jokes. It's about the space between people reacting to them together. The next time you fire up a classic sitcom and you hear that roar of laughter, realize that it's not just an audio track slapped on in an editing booth. It is the invisible heartbeat of the entire performance. So what other iconic television moments do you think would completely fall apart if nobody was watching live? Keep that in mind, and hey, thanks for exploring this with me today.